Hi, and welcome to the Love Learns podcast. My name is Dionne Zara, just your average girl wishing to learn more about love and relationships. As a young girl, I always dreamt about my wedding day, and to be fair, I still do sometimes. With many couples around me, I quickly came to realise love isn't as straightforward as the movies make out. So I thought I'd have conversations with couples who made it past happily ever after to learn more about love. And when I say love, I don't mean like the movies and fairy tales, but I mean LOVE, learning to be open, vulnerable, and empathetic. So if you're ready to learn, unlearn, and discover love through couples, you're in the right place. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Love Learns. This week we have Jihre and Jemima, who are going to give us a little bit about their love story and how they met. Let's say hi to Jihre and Jemima. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you guys?
Good.
Great.
How are you?
Not bad at all, thank you. So let's just start off with how you guys met. Let's start from there.
So Jihre and I met in church. We met around 2010. So yeah, we still go to the same fellowship. So that's how we met initially and became friends. Confirmed?
Yeah. Confirmed, we met in 2010. I was living in Nigeria prior to that, so I came in to school, and I happened to be in the same fellowship with her. That's how we met, and yeah.
Okay, and were you both attracted to each other initially, or
No?
No.
Because I think it was a case of coming to a new country for the first time, and I wasn't living in London. I was living in Kent. She was living in London. We're at different stages of our lives, as it were. So it was more like, well, I'm here to school. That's my priority, and that's it.
Yeah, and funnily enough, I was going into university in Leicester around 2010 anyway. So I was there for a year. So I think we met, but then I wasn't really around that much.
We didn't really see it often because I wasn't even coming to the church that frequently because I was schooling a little bit further out of London, and it was more expensive coming in, so I had to ration my cash and I was coming maybe once or twice a month, and it depends on if she was around at that time. So it was just more on friendship or just from a distance level, not on friendship.
Okay.
Social distance friendship.
So like, when did things kind of change for you guys then?
Well, I would say it majorly changed 2016, but before then we were friends. I think after 2010, I don't think we really even spoke in 2010. 2011 was the first time we actually kind of spoke, and that was because I was graduating, and I invited a few of the guys in church, and they invited the ladies in church as well.
That was me and my sister.
And her sisters. So they came along. So it was just more like a celebration of my graduation, and we all went out for dinner, and that is how we became friends.
I think that's probably the time we spoke the longest, because I don't remember having a full conversation with you. I think we were just happy. We were just coming along for the ride, many fair. Yeah. And then we were just like, oh, Jihre is graduating. Hi, Jihre.
So that was it. Then after then, it was just more like, now you know the person at more one-on-one level, not just speaking broadly in a group setting.
Yeah.
And after that, you have conversations back and forth. If there are birthdays, I go for birthdays. If there's anything. So that was it till 2016, where it was now clearer.
Yeah, I think 2016. It was weird because I think, like Jirhe said, because we were in the same kind of church and we're doing more things as youths in church, so we'd see each other a bit more often. And I came back from Leicester and started going to university in Westminster, so we saw each other a bit more, and we got to know each other on a friendship level I think we had similarities, and I think we kind of poked fun at each other for for a while in terms of our friendship. So, but 2016 was around the time we started to see each other, I think, differently, and it was around the time I think I was going to Australia as well, wasn't I?
Yeah. Correct.
So, I was
good memory.
Good memory.
So, what changed for you guys? When was the pinnacle point for you guys?
Ladies first.
I don't know. It felt like there was a shift in, even when I went to Australia, it was around his birthday, it was around June time, and we weren't even anything. It wasn't, oh, we said how we feel about each other, anything like that, because we weren't talking like that anyway. But while I was there, he was calling me, making sure that I got there safely and all that kind of stuff. And there was a big time difference. I can't remember what it was, but Australia, other side of the world. But he would like check up on me and say, "Oh, are you okay?" and everything. And then when I started feeling like, oh, this person is really looking out for me. So when when we were talking, I was saying, "Oh, I'm coming back on this date," and then he said that he would pick me up from the airport. And bear in mind, I'm coming from a how long was the flight? It was 12 hours maybe plus from Australia to UK. And I hadn't had a shower or anything like that. Trust me, I was like, oh my God, he's gonna see me, looking a bit ragged. But yeah, he picked me up from the airport, and he had a sign up as well of my name at the airport, and which was very sweet.
Oh, he did all that. Oh.
But I like I said, but even at that point, we hadn't said, oh, it just felt like a friend picking you up, but a friend that cared about you, picking you up from the airport. So yeah, but I started to see him differently after that.
Okay. Interesting. You learn every day. You learn new things.
Your version.
For me, the version is almost similar. Prior to 2016, I was in a different relationship and all that, and I'd come out of the relationship, and I was just thinking to myself, yeah, do you want to get into another relationship or not, and all that. And most of my previous relationships have always been long distance, and it has a huge toll on both partners and everyone, especially when you have different time zones. So after that, it was just like, oh well, yeah, you're just hanging around with people. And I think it was prior to my birthday, so we were in church and she said, oh, I'm going to Australia. And I'm like, oh, so you're not going to come for my birthday? Because I was planning to have something after church, because it fell on a Sunday. So I was like, oh, all the youths, normally if it's a birthday, we'll just go somewhere to have dinner or lunch. It depends on what we agree on. So I said, okay, no problem. So she was like, oh, so I will miss it. Also, can we plan something prior to my traveling? So we just met I think we met at Stratford, and
God, yeah,
it was just casual, like, oh yeah, it was not a proper dinner, I won't lie. We ended up at McDonald's in Stratford and eating burger and chips or something, and just having a conversation. And I think a year before then, she had just graduated, so she had started working. So it was just more like a catch-up, how's work, how's graduation life, moving into a corporate world setting and all that. And it was just catch up. And from there, I was like, oh, so when are you going? How are you coming? So I said, oh, no problem. We'll just catch up while you're in Australia. Yeah. So when she was in Australia, I was like, oh, it's far, it's a nice country. And just talking about the whole Australia experience, the down under experience. And it was a flexible conversation, and you can see that you're not struggling to have a conversation. And from there, it was just more like, okay, I'll check up on you. When are you coming back? Who is coming for you? Is your mom coming for you? How are you getting? So and I think she was coming back on a weekend. So I was like, oh, if you don't mind, I'll come pick you from the airport. And it was just like being nice. At the same time, I was like, okay, well, I've not seen this person in this light before, and it's like, okay, let's see how if things would develop. So it wasn't more like, okay, you know what, first sight, but it was just more like, let's see what common interests we have and how we can progress things further. And that was it.
And I forgot about the McDonald's, but I remember that I had a placement in Elephant and Castle. I think it was a placement, or I was working there for a while, and I didn't realize, but Jirhe was working was in the same building.
No, I was working opposite building. Across the road.
But I don't think we knew that for a while. Maybe we saw each other in passing, and it was just like, oh wow, yeah, you're working close to me, which was a coincidence. But I don't think I think I showed you because we had a construction thing around the corner where it was like cabins for food and everything. And I remember telling him, oh, there's food there. And then we met up after, and I just showed him like the Jamaican store. But even then, in the light of all friends and everything, or it was weird that we were like working close in a way together. So it's good.
Cool. And when did you guys move from friendship to officially being in a relationship, and how did that happen for you guys?
You know, for me, I felt like we were, after the Australia trip, we were, you know, spending a bit more time together. And it's funny because I always say, for my parents, I kind of put up the fact that you're not in a relationship, you're either single, you're courting, and then you're married. So I can't remember when you made your intentions known, but it was more like, oh, I want to marry. I can't remember when he said it, but saying I want to marry you, and I said, okay, that's good. So what does that mean? I think I was on the phone to you or something like that. I can't remember.
To be honest, I can't remember that conversation.
So I think for me, all I remember is the time when he said, oh, I want to marry you. And for me, I already knew that in my mind, my feelings were growing towards him. So when he made that clear to me, I kind of like, for me, it was like I was all in, like mentally. But I can't remember when that was. It wasn't too far up before we got married, but you can tell your version. You can tell I have a really good memory, by the way.
I think with from after she came back from Australia, it was just more like having conversation, and then you knew that okay, there might be something there, and just like, or maybe once a week or something, we get to arrange something to meet up and just like, just chat, and then you already know that okay, there's an intention. But with my own self, it was at the back of my mind, it was, am I rushing into another relationship? I think this was almost between 4 to 6 months after my previous relationship. So I was like, okay, you know what? If you're going into a new relationship, what are the lessons you've learned from the previous ones? And I think with this one, right from the beginning, I spoke to people that were already married just to understand, okay, you know what? I think I might be going in this direction, and okay, some of them knew my previous relationship, so they were able to counsel and say, okay, this is a mistake you might have made here. Don't do the same thing, and just make your intentions clear right from the get-go, so it's not that you're leading someone on. And I felt like, yeah, but at the back of my mind, growing up, you already have a vision of what you want. When you want to be financially stable, emotionally stable, have your own place. It's like the movies, you want to be well set to the great bachelor that just needed someone to come and just complement the last piece of the puzzle to just fix your life. And at that time, I was in that stage, so it was more like, do you want to wait? Do you want to move ahead? But a couple of people encouraged me, and I'd seen a couple of friends who, before their marriage, things were still here and there, and with having a wife, there was progress made. So I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll give it a go. But I'll tell you the fact, 80%, I was convinced, 20% was still, this is not my ideal situation. So it progressed from end of June into July, and then I began to be intentional. That's the word. So it's more like commit yourself into things. Like Previously, I'm not someone that want to meet anybody's friends or all that. Our relationship is me and you.
Yeah.
So then I began to commit to meeting her friends. I think I met.
You remember, Dionne, when we went mini golf with was it Tina?
No, Dionne wasn't there. It was Karabo.
Karabo.
I think it was one of you guys' mutual friends that was having a birthday.
And
we all went. I went with her, and it was just more like trying to understand this person's personality, their friendship cycle, and it's the same thing for me. I think one of my friends was having a birthday. At that same period, and she had not met any of my friends because I always keep my friends. I kind of have them in sects. So no, they're really into.
And I've never been in a relationship. I've never had a boyfriend. So I, didn't know what to. And I guess we were still getting to know each other, but doing all those things in terms of meeting each other's friends. So I didn't know how to act really. I was just like, hi. But you put me at ease. But yeah, meeting each other's friends and everything was a good insight into how each other operate and navigate our friendships.
Yeah, so that's basically how we transcended from being friends into a relationship, and we're just more being intentional about what you're doing, committing. I think you're not withholding anything, you're just being upfront and saying, okay, you know what, this is how I want things to be, this is how I think things should be. And at the same time, I think the idea of being all in all, thinking you know everything, might have been a hindrance in the past, where you're not consulting people who might know better than you. So at this stage, I was consulting people that were married, people who were in relationships to say, oh, well, how did you do this? How did you do that? And what do you need to do? And sometimes it's just more like as simple things as, okay, you know what? So when you know you're intentional, you know your intentions are known, what do you need to do next? Are you meeting the father? Are you meeting the sisters and all that? And for me, I think it was kind of making an effort towards not only her, because I had an interest in her now, and I was looking at the long term of her being my wife. It was now putting effort into meeting her siblings. I knew them quite well, but just knowing them individually at a personal level, so that, you know what, I'm comfortable around them, and we're having conversations that doesn't have to be about her or not in passing. So just had a more closer friendship with the family. And for me, that's was just being intentional, out of a little bit out of my comfort zone. But for me, it was just me putting myself out there to make sure that she feels secure, and it's not like I'm taking you away from your family. It's like, okay, you know what? I can be part of your family, and you can be part of my family. So that's it.
Yeah.
Amazing. So Jirhe, you did say that you had some lessons that you learned from your previous relationship. What kind of lessons did you learn before getting into this relationship?
I think one of them is having a frank conversation and being intentional. I'm someone that I like my life. I'm a private person. I don't like anybody in my business. I don't, whether it's your siblings, whether it's anyone, whether it's my siblings, my relationship is, my idea of it is between me
and the person.
And my lessons from that was, previously nobody will actually know if I was in a relationship or not, because I am not a picture posting person. I don't do that. So it could be easy for me to speak with someone else and they'll think I'm single. But for me, it was more like, okay, you know what? That gives the other person insecurities. And the person begins to think about, oh, it's possible that he's leading somebody else on, or somebody is liking him. So for me, it was more like, okay, you know what? Now being intentional, it's not something to hide. It's not something to be private. It's not something about me hiding it. It's just more like, you know what? I just don't like people in my business. And for me, I just felt like, you know what?
Because a lot of opinions will come in and everybody thinks they know what's right for you. So I get you being like that. But like I said, I think that once we were together, I felt like you were very intentional. I think I knew I was secure that I was with you, even though like we weren't under the umbrella of these people are good. Like people didn't know that much about us, but you knew that we were establishing ourselves and trying to move into that place of, yeah, we're going to get married, or we're getting married.
And the second thing was, for me, was seeking counsel as well. The Bible says in the multitude of counsel, there's wisdom. Sometimes previously, I don't know if it's being young and feeling like you know it all. You're not asking questions, or maybe you feel people judge based on your questions. But I think one of the lessons was more like asking questions, being vulnerable in points where you can ask someone for an advice. It doesn't mean you need to take the advice, but you can hear somebody's opinion that might be totally different from what you have, and you make you think and consider certain things, which previously I didn't know that pattern. I just thought, you know what, people just want to be in your business, but I was just seeking counsel. So those were the two things I learned.
I think one thing that you said was, I think is quite key as well. I think before you get into marriage, I think nowadays people have this perception that you need to have everything figured out before you get into marriage. And that's really not the case. Like, especially if you get married, well, when we got married, I was 25, or when we were courting, like 24 and all that kind of stuff. I just finished I'd get into job, uni, and all that kind of stuff. But you don't have to, because like you said, it's like, you do the work together. You don't have to be, oh, I'm here and you come and walk in, or I'm there and you walk in. It's like, no, we're walking, but then we find a path to walk together. So I think, that perception of having everything figured out, I think it's fantastic if you can do it, but it doesn't always work out that way. So
amazing. So what kind of things did you guys have to work on when you were courting before you got married?
I think, the courting stage, we didn't have a long courting stage, I would say, because we
what would you define as courting? That's just big. I'm not too sure.
For me, the courting stage would have been from when you decided, okay, this is going somewhere, it's intention, we're being intentional now, to marriage. So that or engagement, actually, and then engagement to marriage is another stage.
Yeah, funny enough, I think you already know this, Dionne, when I said that, I'm getting married, but I'm not, he hasn't proposed, but I was already my man, I'm getting married anyway, because he already said, oh, I don't really believe in rings and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, that's fine. We're getting married, so it's fine, and I don't have to believe in those things. I wasn't hung up on that element of it. So we were already walking. For me, I think we were already walking in that way. I'm trying to think when we had marriage counseling. We had marriage after the proposal, but so I already knew. Like Jirhe said, he was very open about what his intentions were and what he wanted I guess our lives to be, in years to come. So he was, very open. I think we just kept our friendship, but with a little bit more, if that makes sense. We were still like, but I felt like I said, I haven't been in a relationship before. So he was, texting and everything and saying, oh, good morning, how are you? All that kind of stuff. And then he would, spend time around. And I knew his parents, but I didn't know them that well. When his mom came into town, we met up with them and all that kind of stuff. I met his sister a bit more. He met mine. So we kind of were becoming more familiar with our families and understanding how each other operates. But don't get me wrong, you learn more when you get married about the person's traits. But from that point, we were learning more about each other during the courting stage of things. So.
Well, my own couple of things. I think, like I said, being intentional was one of the things that I was really keen on. It was more, I remember speaking to a couple of people, and it was like, well, if you know this is the person, go and speak to her father. And I was like, yeah, I understand that. It's not like I kind of had because her dad, we attend the same church. So I had, I would say, not a close relationship with her dad, but I had a relationship where you chat about church or talk about football. We both support both different clubs. So we have a banter maybe after church and that kind of thing. But I think when the person said, well, yeah, I think if you're serious about it, go and speak to her dad and all that. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm not too sure because this is really out of my comfort zone. Because at the back of your mind, my mind is thinking, okay, what if something goes wrong? But for me, it was now like a process of me changing my mindset and the way I think. And I remember one day I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to speak to her dad. She didn't know I was
To be fair, I don't even know that
she doesn't even know. I
This is
sent him a
news.
text to say, oh, is it possible for me to come and see you and all that?
Wow.
And this was now in August, I think late August, because my parents were going to come into town in September. So I said, okay, you know what? It might just be a right time for a kind of conversation to start going on, because my parents live in Nigeria and her parents live here and we both live here. So it was, how is the conversation going to happen? And this was before Zoom time where you could actually communicate easily. So I sent him, her dad a text message, and I went to see him, and went to see him and her mom. And it was a great conversation. It was, when you're going to meet the in-law, you're kind of uptight. You're not too sure what to expect. And for me, it was more like, well, you know the person, but you don't want to take the situation or what you're going to discuss for granted.
Yeah.
And also you don't
assume
you don't want to make a lot of assumptions, and you're not too sure how the person is going to react, because at that time she was just 24, and it's not like she was young. At the same time, it's not like she was
young.
old.
I'm young.
But it was just, well, I think it was an ideal time. So we had a conversation with her dad, and he was fine. He was like, well, it's great you're letting us know your intentions, and you're serious about what you're about to do. And he was like, have you spoken to her? What has she said? Have you spoken to your parents? What have they said? And kind of things. So I said, yeah, I've spoken to them. And it was more like, okay, you know what? Well, your parents are coming in, because her parents know my parents as well. So it was like, okay, you know what? We might have a conversation around that time. And also, because my parents were coming, it was more like, okay, try to prep her up, because like she said, it was a first relationship. I think maybe she had met my parents, but more spoken to my dad more than my mom.
Yeah.
And it's more like, okay, you know what, she had thoughts of, wow, would they like me, would they, different things, but just trying to put the person at ease in the family terms. And another thing during the courtship process, we also try to do is just try to see where our interest lies, where our goals lie, how do we tie it together. And it was beginning to plan about different things. Okay, is it kids you want to plan about? Is it, oh, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to live in a fancy house? How in terms of monetary terms, how do you spend? Are you a big spender? Do you want to get all the nice things in life, which I don't think is a bad thing, or do you want to save for a better investment for the future? So those are some of the things, and we kind of aligned with the same things. So, and began to plan and say, okay, you know what, if we're going to have a wedding, how many people are you talking of people, talking about planning? I think
wedding planning is another conversation.
About so many things. So it was just more like having a futuristic plan, and planning towards something, not just the lovey-dovey things that people think that relationship should be about. It's just looking at goals. How do we help each other reach each other's goals? So that's what we're doing at that time.
And one of the things, I think after we got engaged, you remember you were there. The surprise after we got engaged, it felt like everything started to it was all systems going, in the sense that we're doing couples counseling as well with people in our church, And also one of the key things again, which thank you to Dionne, because I remember on our way to one of our couple counseling session, I think I'd seen Dionne or yourself the other day, the day before, and I was on the way there. I was like, "Oh, baby, let's find out what each other's love languages are." So we were doing that in the car, which was fun. And it still serves us to today, I think, because we found out what our preferences and what love language we speak. So all those kind of stuff. I think again, Jerry's point about taking advice and counsel, taking advice from your friends, and finding how each other tick. And don't get me wrong, the couple counselings were lovely, but they also they made you have a bit more of a deeper think about, okay, this is what it means when you're married, and which we really appreciate. I think couples counseling, we went to Birmingham at one point for brethren up there, and it was really good. It really made us have a mirror up to ourselves and say, okay, what you're doing isn't people, we're not getting divorced. Yeah, this person is the one. This is the end game stuff. So it was good. It made us, and we had a few highs and lows, in the sense of saying, oh, I'm not really questioning the fact that we want to get married. I'm also questioning about, oh, are we ready? Is this the right thing? But all those things we worked through, and I think it made us stronger.
Yeah, I think for me, it was interesting. An interesting time. A couple of things, like she said, couple counseling. For me, I would say, as many as looking to get married, look at people and just try and associate, even if it might not be a direct counseling, it might be direct and indirect. So some of the people went to, they would just tell you, well, we don't really have anything to tell you. Well, this is how we run our home. Like one of the couple, well, what they said is, we have the money, we have 2 kids, we'll put money together in a pot for the bills and every other thing, and the remaining money, well, whatever you earn, you can use it to do whatever you want to do. We had another couple where they have only one bank account. The both salaries come into the bank account. They go to work together. They take the train back. If one changes the job, the other one's changing the job, so that they go home together. And so you'd see different dynamics. And for us, it's now made us look and say, I like what they did in this scenario. We can take that. I don't like this. It's too much. We don't want that. So it helped us know that there's no right or wrong way. It's what is ideal for both parties. And I think that's when I began to learn that marriage works not because people are perfect. It's because the 2 people are imperfect, but they are intentional about making it work, and also making having forgiveness. I think that is it, because we had 2 different upbringing. I grew up in Nigeria, she grew up in UK, and well, the way people grew up in Nigeria and the way things are, people will tell you, oh, well, the man is, sometimes it's like the man is, well, he's the Lord and Master, and whatever he says goes. And coming here and meeting somebody from the Western world, their idea is different. It's different from what you already think, but it's trying to adjust and make it work, because sometimes it's not like you're fighting the person. It's more like, okay, you know what, we're in a journey together. How do we make the best of the journey? And that's what we learned during, and we are still learning, to be honest, because there's sometimes you think you know the partner to the fullest, and well, you notice that, okay, you know what, there's certain times that you just have to shut up and just agree. And there's sometimes you have to be vocal, or the way you speak to one another, it has to be using the right words in love, and that's it.
Have you answered your question?
No, you did. You answered a few of my questions beforehand, but you guys did well. So you touched on a lot of things. You touched on like meeting the in-laws. You touched on also like being intentional, and you also touched on like merging lives together. So if I could go just back to when you touched on meeting in-laws, we'll start there. I know you already had a relationship with the family Jirhe, because you guys were going to the same church, and Jemima, you had a bit of a relationship, but not much, because Jirhe's parents were in Nigeria. How was it for you guys to merge your two families in that sense, and them getting together and knowing that this is going to be a marriage?
Well, I think Jirhe made big efforts to make sure that, because he has a sister in Manchester as well, and nieces and a brother-in-law and everything. So we would go up and see them as well, because like I knew of them. Like we'd have like meetings in London, but like I had never had a long conversation with your sister. So I remember there was once he just said, "Oh, we're going to Manchester." So we went to Manchester to see his sister. I spent a few days with them, which was good. I got to know them, and there was some frank, honest conversations, which is what you need to know. Like, oh, this is how I am, and this is how I feel, and all that kind of stuff. And this is how our family works, because sister's the oldest. So getting to know her, and I come from a family of 3 other sisters and 1 late brother, and so I already knew what is going up with like with sisters, but then having another sister who's like older and lives a bit further away, I feel like then I had to be intentional about the relationship. And not for me, I'm not like a vocal person like you do, or like I'm not quick to respond back to people. Like you can text me on Tuesday and I will probably respond to you a month later, because in my mind I've responded back to you, but then it's understanding that you're trying to build relationships, so people require things of you, so it's adjusting to that. And also, even like Jerry said, his parents weren't there that often, and even with the Daddy Hope, we didn't see each other that much. So when they did come around, I was making sure that we made time and talked. I remember when Mom was around, it was around the courting time, and she was like, "So, I think she was asking me about, so how did you know that Jerry was the one?" And I remember I was just like, okay, but but that's the thing I love about Mommy, is the fact that she's just very open, and we're able to have that conversation. And I think, and it just happens organically over time. You just make intention and say, you know what, this is my family. And now, even now, I just consider them mom and dad. It's not really, I don't like the in-laws term, they're just my mom and dad, and that's how they make me feel, and hopefully vice versa, that's how I make them feel as well. So
well, the question was directed at you, so I don't think I need to say anything.
Yeah, no, I think you've answered the question, and it is nice that you guys had the comfortable like beginnings with the in-laws, because I think sometimes it does get a little bit tricky, but for it to be such a good time in the beginning is such a nice thing. Also, like for the wedding planning side of things, because you guys, how long was the engagement anyway?
I think we got engaged October 22nd, 2016. We got married June 18, 2017.
Yeah.
So I think it was about 7 or 8 months.
Yeah. Which again, there was a lot of ups and downs, but like I said, because we're already in that mindset of we're getting married, we were just like already thinking about, we already knew, this how many people, so everything, or what we want and everything. So everything after that was just logistics, which is easy just say just logistics, but trust me,
To be honest, the way I see it, it was a time. It was now a different stage. Like I said, between possibly July or June, end of June and October, it was more, you can call it the mini honeymoon stage, where it's like, oh, everything is going fine. Everything is fine. Then it was now down to, when do we want to have a wedding? And it was more like, okay, she wanted a summer wedding, and me, I was like, yeah, that's a little bit too long, or do we want to do it earlier? When you're about to get married, you have parents have their own input.
Yeah.
And just like, okay, you know what? Why don't you guys do it in December? Or why don't you guys do it March? I think we had a few dates that were floating around, but she was ideally, she wanted a summer wedding. And for me, it was more like, okay, you know what? It's all about compromise. It's what we want at the end of the day. We're the ones getting married, and you will be the one to choose the date. So it's just more like floating around dates and just getting the parents to look at their diary to see how they fit in, and the church how they fit in.
Yeah, the church. Yeah.
So we eventually, she said she wanted a summer wedding, and I think she was a little bit emotional about it, and I was like,
which I didn't think I would be. Honestly, I didn't think, because there was at one point we had it was discussion about the venue, because we already at that point decided when we were going to do what season, because I let December roll past and said, okay, next one is June. But like they had between two venues, and I saw them both, and I had my heart, like I was, and I didn't think I'd be one of those people that'd be like, oh, be attached, but I said I can imagine us getting married underneath this sky, like blah blah blah. And I still remember like it was yesterday, because it was in the living room with my parents and Jirhe. I was like, I want this venue. And I was starting crying. I'm like, why am I crying over a venue? Like, I remember, if my parents were looking at me like, calm down. And Jirhe was very patient. And this is where I thought I was very patient and very like, blasé about things. But then when I was quite particular about what I wanted, and Jirhe can be particular as well, but I felt like he was always trying to lean to my side to make sure that, in his day as well, and he still had, made sure that he had things that he wanted on date, but he still made sure things happened for me, or made me, and also when I was a bit clouded about what I wanted, he would try and make me see that, okay, Tommy, this isn't going to work because X, Y, and Z. And then I'll be like, oh, okay, fine. That's fine. But yeah, wedding planning is when you really see big decisions being made, and it kind of prepares you slightly for the bigger decisions you have down along the line. But yeah, wedding planning is not.
I think it's the first big decision that a couple kind of make together.
Yeah.
So that's where you know that, okay, it's kind of when you start forming how you guys make decisions.
Yeah.
Definitely, you guys, it has to be one decision, not both decisions, and having both parties to agree on certain things. You might not like it, or you might agree, because, well, it's a give and take situation. So you might give on this case, and on another case, you'll be like, okay, you know what, you can handle all that. All I want is this, and any other thing you want, and that kind of thing, and how to manage things as well, because you have frank conversations, because it's conversations that
about budgets,
you might not like,
money, all those things.
some things that you might not like.
Yeah.
That either my parents or her parents wants is, okay, how do we strategize on how to get what we want if someone is against the plan? So it's either her, if I don't like something, I'm not going to meet her dad and say, no, I don't like it.
Yeah.
She's the one that has to find a way and speak to her dad, and me has find a way to speak to my parents. Or so it was just learning the ropes and strategy on how to get what you want done. And at the end of the day, it was nice, and she got what she wanted. Summer wedding, we got all time
in the venue that I wanted,
in the venue that she wanted, in the hottest day of that year.
God, yeah. But it was beautiful. We thank God, exactly. And it's the lessons that we learned then have served us to now. Like Jirhe said, about things that are important to us. Even when we were deciding about buying the house, it was, with lessons that we pull in and what's important to us, and having long discussions and what do you want, what do I want, compromising, meeting in the middle. And it just, I think big thing is always communication, I think, with each other, and being clear about not reading into what they're saying too much. Like, I want something yellow means I want something yellow, not thinking, does he want yellow? Maybe he wants green, and maybe green is not the way he wants it. Maybe blue, like trying to always second guess what that person's saying when their yes is yes, So
yeah. Very cool. You guys like touching points before I've even asked you questions. Like pros, honestly. That's a lot of information, but you guys touched on compromise and stuff a lot in in that period of time.
Yeah.
But how did you deal with conflict around that time as well? Because obviously building, if there's certain things that you want and the other person doesn't want, there's going to be a bit of conflict. How did you guys manage your conflicts?
For me, I would say it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry.
Yeah.
No, because the thing is, I think it's something that people rarely say. There's always conflict. Yeah, there's no marriage that won't have conflict. So it's more like, yeah, I'm angry and I'm a shut down person. Once I go angry, I shut down and withdraw. And she's different. She's quick to get things sorted out, and I am the opposite. Is once I get upset, I just go from 100 to 0.
He's a volt.
Pushing -1. And the thing is, you learn. These are the things that you learn because conflict was there. I think during the wedding, like she said, she wanted a venue, and I think the venue was going to take about 280 people, and it's a little bit complicated because previously we had a different venue that could take about 600, and invites have gone out, and now we had changing venues, and we had already invited people, but the venue Nigeria, she wanted was a smaller venue than the alternative, which was going to sit about 350. So it was going to be like, how are we going to have this difficult conversation of, well, the venue is now smaller, so the people that you have invited will not be able to attend. Who is now going to miss out? Who are you going to have that conversation to say, you don't need to come? So that was where it was. But God willing, we're able to have that compromise. And it was more like, okay, you know what? Children will not be able to be in the main hall. We'll have a different hall, walk around, getting an entertainer. But this was after she being bent on having that decision and me being upset about that decision, because at that point I'd already printed 2 different wedding cards with the 2 different venues on it. So it's which ones are going out. But at the end of the day, I was like, oh, well, if this is what you want, this is what you want. I don't want an unhappy wedding day when it's like, well, this is not what I want. And we moved past it and we had to find a way around it. And I had to live with it, and knowing that the venue, what she wanted, was not like it was a bad venue, it was just a thing of numbers. And I think sometimes it's your wedding day, it's what you desire. And sometimes other people, from a selfish point of view now, other people shouldn't really be the priority because it is what you want. People will forget it and move on to another person's wedding. But you will always have that reminder that, oh, this is not the venue I wanted. So we made the best decision, and we're able to come around the conflict.
The day went so fast, and it's so funny. When we were sitting up there, I was like thinking nobody knew that we all the discussion that happened beforehand. You're just sitting there eating the food and enjoying. But do you know that we argued about this? And it's just how things, I guess, turn out in the end. Is you have to go through a lot of talking, decision making, and like Jirhe said, it turned out to be a great day. And I wouldn't change it. Aww. Maybe the weather, maybe a bit cooler, maybe a little bit cooler, but apart from that, no.
Well, we're praying for sunshine because we had the wedding outside, and we're like, oh, what if it rains? And we're already in the ceremony. We prayed for sunshine. We got more than one banging for. It's all right.
The tan lines prove that.
Yes, I remember having tan lines for days after that wedding.
On the dress.
But yeah, so you guys also touched on intentions and being quite intentional before you guys got married and having conversations such as finance, budgets, all those kinds of things. Were there any other expectations you guys had that you hadn't cleared up before you got married that actually came up after you got married?
I don't really think, to be honest, I'm trying to scratch my head, and if I'm scratching my head, I think we would just, it was just all right.
We talked about, pretty much. I mean, Jirhe did make he said that, oh, I want to move back to Nigeria after 5 years.
Yep.
And I had to get my head around that. But what year are we on? We're coming up to the
1 year more.
And then we're going, no, well, I doubt. But for me, I really resolved in my head, okay, that's what he wants. He wants, and I want to be with him. And if that means moving to Nigeria, then I have to get my head around that. And even still now, if he says that, I mean, it'll be a hard, but at the end of the day, I think because I've already had that conversation, it's not coming as a surprise to me now, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I think, yeah, like you said, we had that kind of conversation. To be honest, when I said it, I just said it in passing because I don't know if that is going to happen or it's not going to happen, but it's more knowing that you and your partner can agree on certain things, because if it happens in the future, it's not going to be a new conversation of, well, why am I just knowing about this, that this might be a possibility? And the person is now like, I don't want to be in a relationship or in a marriage where one person is in A and the other person is in Z, and then the children are either with A or with B. And for me, it's not the kind of marriage I intended to have. So for me, it was more like trying to just have those kind of conversations, so that it's more like, well, if we decide one day we're going to leave UK and go somewhere else, Canada, Seychelles, Congo, wherever, but it's more like knowing that she's willing to move with me. So those are the kind of little things, just to be able to know that, okay, you know what, we are both flexible, but it's making sure that even when I make that kind of decision, I'm not putting her in harm way. It's not taking her out of her comfort zone to be in a place where she's isolated from every other thing she knows about.
And it's a discussion, not a dictatorship. Like, it's not like, I think for me, naturally, I'm always, maybe because of the way I've been brought up, I always see Jirhe is the head of the household, you know, and whatever he says, you know, if he says final decision is this, I'm like, okay, that's fine, you know, because he wouldn't lead us, our family, into like, you know, into a bad path, you know. I'm his helpmate, and vice versa, and all that kind of stuff. But I find that we have that discussion, and I know that he will never do anything to harm me or to lead us into, like I said before, astray on the wrong path. So I think the conversation, we continue to have conversations about things, and I think now we're a lot better at it than we were in the beginning. I thought we were okay before we got married. After, we were like, oh, you were good, but you find that as years go by, like I was saying to Jerry the other day, sometimes it just feels so natural now to like talk things through and be like, you know, what do you think about this and that? What about this and that? And it just makes you comfortable, maybe because you have that person to bounce things off of, and also that you are very open about things. I don't think I can ever keep anything from Jirhe. Jirhe kind of, he knows me inside. I can't even do surprises for him because I'm like, oh God, I just can't do it. And it's taking time just to be like completely open with somebody. And maybe because I know his intentions, and I know that we've had those deep discussions, and it just builds from there. So yeah.
Amazing. I was going to ask you guys one more question actually before we start ending. And that is, like, what have you guys learned about yourselves since you've been married?
Shall I go first?
Ladies first.
Ladies first. I've learned a couple of things. One thing I've learned is that I can be quite emotional about things, and I don't have to be. I don't need to be. So I've learned to manage my emotions, or to manage my emotions, i.e., because I realized that you don't have to cry every time about something. You can just say, this thing doesn't make me happy, and be okay. You can, and I've learned that because through having those discussions with Jirhe, when I get to work, I can also cut the emotions out as well, if that makes sense. So I'm learning that I don't have to be emotional about things. I can talk in a rational and straight way. And I also learned that I like to, you know, be a bit more of a homely person. Before, you wouldn't find me in the kitchen. Like, it wasn't my place to be, but now I enjoy that kind of stuff. I enjoy making him happy through food and all that kind of stuff. So and that's something I never knew before. Hence, COVID-19. But but you know what I mean? I never knew that I could be like that, and it's a part of me that I unlocked, which I'm happy about. I also know that I can be impatient sometimes about things, like very impatient. Like if I buy something, I need to open it now. But like Jay said, when we're having a discussion or disagreement, I want to resolve it now, like now. But now, if Jay says he needs a day or two, I can do a day or two. But before, I couldn't. Let me tell you that I couldn't. Like I couldn't. But it's just unlocking those things about myself, and I think that's one of the key things I learned.
For me, I think I kind of learned that I was a difficult person, though. Yeah. In the sense that I kind of want what I want when I want it, and learning to, let me not say, maybe I'm being harsh on myself now, but if there's something I want, that is what I want, kind of. And I always have reason. I always feel like I think things through before I come to that decision. And like coming back to conflict, I think that's one of the things I've learned is shutting down doesn't solve anything when the other person is almost totally opposite to you, wants to have a conversation. So I'm learning that, you know what, you can speak about it, and things can be resolved without you feeling a certain kind of way, trying to feel, why is this person not understanding when the points I am bringing forth are valid. But it's also learning to understand that, well, your points might be valid, but there's somebody else in the relationship who has a certain way they feel about the situation, and trying to consider that person's emotions, consider the way the person thinks, before not just presenting the fact and say, well, this is fact, even though you're emotional about it, but this is fact. But it's trying to consider the other person's emotion. And if it's not a life or death issue, or why is a big deal, it might be fact. And if it's not going to have a big impact, well, we can go through the way the other person wants it. But at the end of the day, it brings the person to an understanding of, okay, you know what, if we're going through a similar thing the next time, okay, we can approach it in a different way. And it's a learning process, because maybe because I'm a little bit older, I may have made certain mistakes in that kind of when in that position previously. I may have made a certain decision and I've seen the repercussion of it. So sometimes experience is the best teacher than learning from somebody's experience. So that is what I've learned, is making sure my partner is in an okay place, making sure I always put her first, because at the beginning of the relationship, it's like, well, certain things that people can dish out to me, I can take it. I'm expecting her to take the same thing. But now it's more like, okay, no, because I can take it doesn't mean my partner can take it. And that means making sure it's more like, okay, now you have to make sure you are a shield for your partner. If she's not okay with a certain thing, then you have to remove her from that equation. You have to make sure that she's fine, because she's the priority. She's the person you live with. She's the person that
cooks your food.
Well, not even the cook. She's the person that you're going to live with. You can order friendships, can cease, but this one, because you know that this is a lifetime commitment, it's better to always be on the right side of the law, or right side of with your partner, and just making sure whatever she wants, it doesn't necessarily she gets all she wants, but make sure that she's comfortable in all spaces, whether physical or emotional, and just be a good partner for her.
And that's what you said is a key thing. And it takes time, because like you said about being comfortable, like I have capacity to take things, and then sometimes I don't. And people think, people maybe that don't know me or know Jirhe or know Jirhe or know you know what I mean. But it's understanding that in different environments, people function differently, and it takes seeing that. And I think Jirhe and I are now in a point where he knows, like, okay, if Tommy doesn't want to be in this space or doesn't want to be here, I'm not going to force her. But before, I felt like I had to be there because to make him happy. But now it's like, you don't have to do that. Like, we have to talk about those things and be like, Tommy, if you're not comfortable, you don't have to do this. If you're not comfortable, you don't have to do that. And then it takes away from me, because I don't know whether there's an African thing of feeling like where your husband goes, you must go, or where your husband is, you know what I mean? But I feel like it just works. And it might sound a bit airy-fairy, but it actually just works. Sometimes it's having months, maybe, and years as well, of talking it and saying, I'm not comfortable with this, I'm comfortable with that, or these words, if you say these words, I feel this kind of way, and all that kind of stuff. It just takes communication and understanding each other, and yeah, it just works. And hopefully just get better. No, honestly, sometimes I just feel like it just works. It hasn't always been that way, but I'm grateful that we are on that journey.
So the last question, which I ask all my couples, is what have you learned about being open, vulnerable, and empathetic in your relationship?
Shall I go first? Yeah. I've learned that you have to be all those things, otherwise it doesn't work. You have to be open, because otherwise you're going to just keep it all inside and it's going to spill out in the wrong way. And also you have to be empathetic about what the fact that you haven't grown up with this person and this person is different to you and thinks differently. You have to understand that and always give them the benefit of the doubt. You know, even though it goes against what you think about, why can't he just do this way? You have to do you have to be empathetic, and you just have to be vulnerable. You can't have a wall built up, otherwise you might as well be in two separate buildings. And you have to be vulnerable. I think marriage, like I said, I haven't been in a relationship before, so marriage has taught me to literally drop everything and just, this person is you are that person, like you're supposed to be one. And if you can't say these things to that person, then who can you say it to? You're supposed to be your person. So yeah, you have to be all those things, because it makes your relationship so much better and stronger, knowing that you can be open with that person that you're with. So
well, vulnerable. Yeah. Yeah, I think vulnerability comes with marriage if you want to have a successful marriage. That's the way I see it. You have to be open. You have to be vulnerable, and God willing, your vulnerability is not taken as weakness or exploited by the other party. That's what marriage is about. There's nobody that's perfect. And one thing I think I've learned also, somebody said to me that you are what you make of your marriage. It's what you want from it. If you want a first-class marriage, you have a first-class marriage. If you just want a marriage where it's like, well, they give you a certificate to say you are married and one person is doing A and the other person is doing B. It's what you want. It's what your decision towards it is, how much commitment you put towards it, how much you're willing to be vulnerable about things that might concern you, and how you try and your partner tries to help you and how you try to help them. Like being open. One thing I've learned is if you're not being open, then there becomes this kind of loophole for there be no trust. It's more like if I tell her I'm going somewhere, you should know I'm going to that place. Even if I'm found somewhere else, it's not like, oh, what was his intention? Why didn't you tell me you were doing this? It's more like it's more like a trust thing. It's more like, okay, you know what? I want to do this. I don't want you to come with me. She'll be like, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going out, and I don't want you to come. And she's like, why? I'm like, well, because I just want to go out. and I want to have my space, because
you can't live in each other's back pocket. You have to be independent of each other. You have to have your own friends and your own space. Otherwise, you.
And that's one of the things I think we have learned to be open, because at the beginning it's more like where she's going, I will feel like, oh, I have to be there. But now it's more like, you know what? We actually can have different lives.
Yes.
And function independently, because that helps your mindset, that you don't feel like somebody's in your own space.
Yeah.
And for me, it's what we had learned before. You won't be able to have that conversation because you're thinking, oh, does this person feel I'm hiding something?
Yeah.
But being open about the conversation is like, okay, you want to play netball, you want to play tennis, go and play tennis. You want to be with your girls, go and be with your girls. It's no problem.
And
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But previously, maybe the first 1 or 2 years of marriage was like, okay, where are you going? Are you going without me? And that kind of thing, it's not like, so is it that I can't have a life and you can't have a life? We can be independent of each other and at the same time still be together.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a trust where you build up trust and you're able to have an open and frank conversation, because sometimes having open and frank conversation can make people on your partner understand you better. Yeah. And once your partner understands you better, whatever you're doing, whatever decision you make, they will come around it eventually. It might not be easy at first, but they see that, okay, you know what? It's not like I don't want to be with you.
Yeah.
It's just more like, okay, you know, sometimes, oh, I want to hang out with the boys, or I just want to do things on my own that I think might improve myself and the way I feel at a certain time. Maybe you're feeling in a different headspace. You just want to clear out your head and come back and feel like, okay, you know what, I'm fine. It's not like you want to talk about it because you don't know how to explain it.
And I'm the problem. The thing is with me, I always be like, so what's wrong? So how do you feel? And then when you felt like that, what was the next? Like, I would be that kind of, because I want him to like get it, everything out. Like, are you okay? And then like he said, sometimes he just wants to be with his friends and just have a laugh and do all that kind of stuff. And vice versa. I just want to be independent. But Jay made a good point. In the beginning of our marriage, it wasn't like that. And it took a lot of getting used to. And then imagine now we're like, okay, we can be independent of each other. So it's like, it really is like up, it can go up and down and things change. But it's, you know, having that conversation and working through that. And things change, but you just have to go with it. And it all works out in the end. As long as you both know, I want to stay married, I love you, I'm committed to you. And this is the journey that we're on together. And God has put us together. That's really the key thing. And if that stays at the forefront of your mind, then everything else kind of fades into the background.
Wow. That's amazing. I think a lot of people do struggle with that at the beginning, even in relationships, not just marriage, where you feel like you have to be with your partner constantly. And then with time you realize, actually, I like my space. So get out of it. But yeah, it's really nice to see that you guys had that progression of still learning how to navigate through being individuals in a marriage and still being together, which is so beautiful. And when you think about it, it's like bringing richness into the relationship, because you're both doing something different to talk about into the relationship as well, which is nice. So thank you so much for sharing, guys, and being so open and honest with your
Thanks, Dee.
It was so lovely having you. I've been fighting for this conversation for a long time.
Well,
you can do part 2.
well, let this settle first.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely have to do a part 2, because I know you guys' story, and I think there's so much more you guys can share. I think we've just really talked about your courting experience, not really the marriage. And I would love to dive more into that and find out more about you guys' marriage.
We'll do a whole segment.
Well, yeah, I think now, first time on camera I've been into, well, will I say interview or having a conversation about it? It's a little bit, it was a bit strange. I think I was a little bit like, do I want my face? Do I want a story? I'm not that kind of person, but I think sometimes you just have to sometimes you have to leave your comfort zone, try new things, and it's not like it's something that's negative. So I'm open.
Yeah, no, it's good. And the things I'm picking up, the stuff I haven't heard before, so it's good for me as well. Eye opener. So,
That's good. That's so good. Thank you so much for coming on, guys.
thanks, Dee.
Yeah, we'll have part 2 soon, guys. So look out for part 2.